What's growing on, gardeners? On today's very special episode, I'm going to share with you all 5 edible ground covers that you should companion plant around your fruit trees right now. These edible ground covers will not only make your fruit trees healthier, happier, and more productive by permanently blocking weeds and also keeping their roots cooler so they're happier when growing, but you will also dramatically increase the harvests from your yard because you will be growing food underneath food. This type of mentality will revolutionize the way you get your harvests.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
One of the most common questions that I get is how far apart should I plant fruit trees, or how far apart should I plant tomato plants or pepper plants or some other annual vegetable? Well, the reason why those questions are asked so often is because we all know that if plants are planted too closely together, they can compete with each other and basically fight each other and stunt their growth. For example, this lemon tree and this avocado tree are planted 7 feet apart. That was as close as I could plant them, where they could still grow to a pretty good size and give me a very large harvest. If I planted them closer together, they would probably fight with each other more than I wanted them to. And the reason why this happens is because these plants effectively occupy the same level of the soil. The roots basically occupy the top surface and they go all the way down several feet below. And especially underneath the soil a few feet, they can get tangled up and compete with each other and stunt each other to a degree. This is what makes companion planting so exciting. The idea behind companion planting is that you can have multiple different species occupy the same area and they won't outcompete each other because the roots occupy different levels of the soil. So since they aren't directly competing and they are living in different areas of the soil, they actually can be anywhere from neutral to actually beneficial, where one plant can support the other. And that is what we are going to cover in this video. The plants featured in this video can be planted basically right up next to each other because they don't occupy the same level of the soil. And each plant has individual benefits, where having themselves planted next to each other actually supports each other. So you're actually growing things in the same space and getting more productivity while having healthier plants overall. Edible ground cover number 1 that I am planting all over my yard are strawberries. Strawberries just may be the most amazing edible ground cover for people that deal with freezing winters. In fact, last year I went and visited James Prigione's yard and garden, and I saw he had strawberries growing underneath all of his apple trees, and I thought that was a brilliant system. So I took that idea home and I doubled down on it, and I'm planting strawberries all over underneath my apple trees. Now, this doesn't have to be done underneath an apple tree. You can grow strawberries under pretty much any tree. However, here where I live on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, we get about 30 to 40 frosts and freezes every single year, so strawberries tend to do really well here. And the reason why I like, in my climate, planting strawberries underneath deciduous fruit trees is throughout the winter, these trees are bare. They don't have leaves on them, and the strawberries start waking up from dormancy about 2 months before any of the deciduous fruit trees start budding out. So what happens is the strawberries wake up early and they get full sun in the winter because they're not blocked and shaded by any of the leaves. So they're able to absorb unencumbered sunlight and then make their leaves, make their flowers, and really get to take off and develop their fruit set while the sun is still gentle in the spring before any of the fruit trees start waking up. But then the fruit trees start waking up in springtime and they put on all of their leaves by late spring, early summer. At that point, strawberries don't really like full sun in the middle of the summer. It's too hot for them. They like the cooler weather. So the shade of the leaves that are now on the trees actually wind up shading out the strawberries. And it is the perfect symbiotic system. We have the strawberries that are going to grow as a very thick ground cover that are going to prevent weeds. They're going to lock in moisture. They're going to keep the roots of the apple trees nice and shaded and cool. And in the meantime, the apple trees are going to pay back the strawberries and keep them cool during the heat of the summer. Here's what's incredible. I started planting these strawberries underneath my apple trees last fall. So this whole system has only been in ground for about 6 or 7 months. And the strawberries have already deeply established. I mean, look, they are starting to send runners. So this is the least dense these strawberries will ever be. The runners multiply like crazy. They multiply like bunnies. So in another year or two, this whole area is going to most likely be a very, very lush, thick mat of strawberries, similar to what you see here in my main strawberry bed that are a few years old. See, these strawberries are planted in such high density, well, they've multiplied, I should say, in such high density that they basically block out all weeds. No weeds can grow in there because the strawberries have crowded them out. And all I did was buy 25 strawberry plants and I let them multiply over a few years, and boom, they fill out an entire giant row like that. So impressed have I been with this system that I also started planting strawberries this spring underneath my peach tree. And amazingly enough, this is what you can expect from strawberries that you plant after only about 2 to 3 months. And I'm planting even more strawberries underneath this pawpaw tree right here. Here are some strawberries that I planted only about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and they are already that far along. So within only a year or two, I will be harvesting buckets of strawberries down low, and then only a few months later, I will be harvesting buckets of apples and peaches above the strawberries. Are strawberries the best edible ground cover for most people? Well, I think if you are in zones 4 through 9, they very well just may be. Edible companion plant number 2 that you should plant underneath your fruit trees is one that is very important to me culturally, and that is oregano. As an Italian American that grew up in New Jersey, I go through a lot of oregano. We all have to have an Italian oregano plant. Now, this specific oregano plant, I have been growing in containers for 6 or 7 years. I started growing it when I was renting a house before I had my current home built, and I started thinking to myself, why am I still growing this in a container? Why don't I just put it in ground? This thing makes an incredible cold hardy mat that is going to grow underneath my fruit trees all year round, suppress the weeds, and as an added bonus, because of the strong scent of oregano, it actually has some natural pest repellent properties. So just like my strawberry plants, I planted my oregano plant underneath my apple trees, and this is going to have the same similar symbiotic relationship. Now, your Italian oregano is hardy somewhere around to the zone 7-8 line. I've never gotten colder than 14 degrees on this property, and the oregano has never taken any damage in any of those temperatures, so you're probably never going to see dieback if you never see temperatures underneath about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. But even if you do see some dieback, it is going to grow back quickly. These can tolerate temperatures well below 0 and still come back from the roots. So this is a cold hardy perennial that just about everybody can grow for the most part directly in ground. And just like before, the oregano, well, they really appreciate the full sun throughout the cool season in the fall, the winter, and the spring, and then they actually don't like being blasted in full sun. They tend to flower and bolt, and that's when you really have to prune them back. Well, having the shade from the apple trees that will be fully leafed out during the season is going to protect that oregano plant. So again, we have that really beneficial relationship, and again, the smell of the oregano actually has some pest repellent properties that I'm sure the apple tree will not complain about. Oregano is quite spreading over a long period of time, so eventually after several years I expect this entire area right here that you see basically to be one giant sprawling oregano bush. Edible ground cover number 3 that you should plant underneath your trees is another culinary delight, and that is thyme. What you see right here is a thyme plant that's only about 6 months old. I bought it in a grocery store. I plopped it in ground probably last October or November. It took all of our cold. We got like 40 freezes. We had an ice storm. We got down into the teens 5 times last year, and it didn't even die back even a little bit. This is German thyme. This stuff is cold hardy, I think, until about zone 5. So this is going to be evergreen in the vast majority of climates out there. So you'll be able to harvest this all winter long in many cases, as well as obviously throughout the rest of the year. I've found thyme to be more heat sensitive than cold sensitive over the years, so again, it's really going to appreciate the shade from this Asian pear tree right here during the summer. So again, we have that symbiotic relationship, and again, the odor of thyme is a natural pest repellent. So fresh. Thyme is a wonderful, slow spreading plant. Eventually, this whole open area that you see right here will be a low carpet of thyme that will only be a few inches long. That's what's so nice about it. It's very low and it's very spreading, but because it stays so low, it's not particularly invasive and it's very easy to control its spread. If you want, you can let it take over this entire area, but you can also regularly prune it and cut it back if you want to keep it in a smaller, more compact form. Edible ground cover number 4 that you should plant underneath your trees is a must-have if you love poultry, and that is sage. Believe it or not, this sage plant right here is only a year old, and look at this beautiful bush that it has formed. This is another very cold hardy plant. Here in Zone 8, it has no chance of taking any damage throughout the winter. It is evergreen all year, and I suspect in Zone 7, maybe even colder, you will be able to grow this as a perennial. It may die back in some colder zones, but it should come right back when things warm up in the spring. And of course, it is absolutely delicious. Woo, that's strong. Sage will grow as a very low bush like you see right here. So because of the way it is occupying the area, there's no chance of any weeds ever growing. I mean, look how thick and lush and gorgeous this bush is. So I have developed quite the system here. I have the German thyme on the left side of my Asian pear, followed by the sage, followed by the strawberries, and then all of my peaches and apples that the strawberries are underneath. So this whole area right here is going to be edible from top to bottom with minimal to no weeds at all. And edible ground cover number 5 that you should plant underneath your fruit trees is one that is going to shock you. I know it shocked me, and that is kale. Come on, kale as a ground cover? Believe it. This kale right here came up on its own. It must have been spread either by birds or by wind when I let my old kale go to seed at the end of last summer. It deposited all around my yard. And a lot of the kale that came up on its own out in the open actually is being overwhelmed by caterpillar pressure. For whatever reason, caterpillars just love the red Russian kale variety. But the kale that is protected underneath the shade of this persimmon tree is thriving with relatively minor caterpillar and worm damage by comparison. Some of the random kale plants that came up at the exact same time that were self-seeded are already starting to bolt because they are sitting out in the open sun, and we've already had some days close to 90 degrees here in mid-May. But this kale, by comparison, shows no stress at all. This is not going to bolt anytime soon because it is protected by the shade of this persimmon tree. And as a result, this kale is better looking than any of the red Russian kale that is growing out in my open garden. The tree canopy for protection is really doing wonders for it. I mean, just look at how big and beautiful those leaves are, and they are overwhelmingly unharmed from the worms. Is this kale going to provide any real benefit to this persimmon tree? Probably not, but it doesn't need to. The point is that we can grow twice as much food in the same amount of space. Not only can I harvest persimmons off this tree, but I can harvest kale underneath the tree. And clearly the persimmon tree is providing a lot of protection to that kale. As for the persimmon, I'm not concerned about this at all because they have virtually no issues with insect pests and diseases here on the coastal Carolinas. The only thing that really bothers them are the possums, the raccoons, and the deer, because they want that delicious fruit as much as you do. But wait, I have a bonus edible ground cover. This one is highly experimental, so I'm not completely confident on it just yet, but so far I'm liking what I'm seeing, and that is the cucumber. Growing cucumbers as a ground cover is a wild concept, but here I am trying it out in between this persimmon and pluot tree. I have a couple infant vines back there, and so far I'm liking what I'm seeing. So these cucumber vines right here are a smaller vining cucumber called Isnik. This probably isn't the best choice for this area. I should probably have gone with a more vigorous and spreading cucumber vine, since overall the idea is to blanket the whole area as much as possible with ground cover. But these are the spare plants that I had, so I put them in ground, and right away they are taking pretty well. And the reason why I chose cucumbers is because of their fast growing nature and their wide leaves. seeds. You could have grown something like a cherry tomato here, but the cherry tomatoes, well, they don't have great coverage because their leaves are small, and they're going to drop so many fruits that I'm going to have so many cherry tomatoes coming up for years, it's going to be a nightmare. This isnik is a parthenocarpic variety, so it doesn't make seeds. It's not going to litter the ground with any sort of seeds that are then going to germinate and create years of fighting vines growing everywhere. I know a few volunteer plants are a good thing, but hundreds or thousands, not really a good thing in my opinion. So, if all goes according to plan, within 4 to 6 weeks, these plants should basically blanket this entire area, which will provide that weed suppression that I'm looking for, and also these trees, in the long run, should do a good job at helping to give the cucumbers a little bit of shade. Obviously, they won't be able to do it the first year because these are just trees that are in their infancy. But in later years, as these trees grow, I'll probably experiment with this system more and more. But I wanted to share this with you all because it is quite an interesting concept. If this cucumber experiment is successful, I will probably also try the same exact system with squash and melons because they also have very large leaves that blanket the ground and provide a lot of shade. They also grow very quickly with extreme vigor, and the fruits are very, very large, so they will be easy to harvest and pick up, and they're not going to litter the ground, again, like a tomato would or maybe a pepper would or something like that. So I will be able to easily remove all of the fruits so I don't scatter accidentally thousands of seeds that is going to lead to an abundance of weeds in the area for all of my life. And that right there are 5, well, as many as 8 edible ground covers, depending on how you counted the list I just gave you, that you can plant underneath your fruit trees now. Since I've been living in this house for over 7 years, I've largely planted out the perimeter of the yard and my garden, and I've kind of maximized a lot of the open space that I have. So now, over the last couple of years, I've been hunting for ways I can squeeze more things in without negatively impacting the plants that are growing now. And this companion planting, growing food under food, sort of like you'd find in a real forest, is something that I've been experimenting with, and I really want to share these ideas with you in hopes that I can inspire you. Like last year, I put this raised garden bed right here in between my almond tree and my persimmon tree because I had 6 or 7 feet of open space, so I figured why not throw a raised garden bed in there? And I'm actually getting really good production out of it. In fact, let's harvest this onion right here. And look at that, we have a beautiful winter-grown onion growing in between 2 fruit trees. And I mean, I have plenty of other things in here. I have lots of indeterminate tomatoes, cherry types, beefsteak types. I have a zucchini. I have lots more onions. I have hot peppers, sweet peppers. Everything is doing great. So if you get creative like this, even if you think you don't have any room left in your yard, or you think you have a small yard and you can't fit anything, well, thinking of little tricks like this is a great way to find space where you may have thought none existed. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring the notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden, they are all linked in the video description in my Amazon storefront link. So expand the video description, click on the Amazon storefront link, and you will see everything I use in real life. And while you're down there, please consider checking out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Oh, Dale is so excited to play with his sloth. It has a squeaker in it. Okay, come on, buddy. He's so excited. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on, buddy. And go, Dale. Oh, my. Oh, wow, he almost got that. Dale, that was amazing. There he goes. Whoa. He's running like a pup. Whoa. He faked me out. I thought he was going the other way. Go, Dale, go. Whoa. Boy, somebody's got some pent-up energy. Okay, wait. You're being very good. All right, let's tug. Very good. Oh, he's so strong. He's so strong. Dale, can you drop? Oh, that was so good. All right, Dale, let's see your catching skills. And, oh, that was a bad throw. I'm sorry, buddy. Dad can't throw. All right, let's relax now that it's in the evening. Let's sit outside and enjoy the sunset.